This is Gen Z, a podcast that explores Generation Z, who they are, how they're different from other generations, while also being an incredible blend of those who came before them. I'm your host, Meghan Grace. Welcome back. It is so nice to have you here as always. When we talk about generations, we often focus on the newest one, trying to understand behaviors and values and their place in the world. But what happens as generations grow older? How do we age, and what does that process look like through a social and developmental lens? That's where the science of aging, also known as gerontology, comes in. This field not only explores how we age physically, but how we continue to grow emotionally, socially, psychologically across the lifespan. Today's conversation connects the dots between generational research and the science of aging, reminding us that understanding the full arc of human development helps us better support and engage all generations, not just in the workplace or in school, but in our communities and everyday lives. In this episode, I'm joined by Sharon Rose, a social gerontologist whose work focuses on fostering connection across generations and creating vibrant intergenerational communities. Sharon has built a career designing programs that not only support healthy aging, but also strengthen the relationships between older and younger generations, something I think we could all use a little more of. Her background is as dynamic as she is inspiring. From her early days working with the Grammy Awards and in hospitality in the tourism industry to now serving on national and international boards focusing on aging, Sharon brings a unique blend of creativity, empathy, and strategy to everything she does. And yes, she even collaborates with her mom, a 99-year-old super ager and lifelong learner, and also someone who sounds like she's going to be my hero. So trust me when I say you're going to love the wisdom that Sharon brings to today's conversation.
Have you ever been to a webinar where the topic was great, but there wasn't enough time to ask questions or have a dialogue to learn more? Well, welcome to HR and Payroll 2.0, the podcast where those post-webinar questions become episodes. We feature HR practitioners, leaders, and founders of HR, payroll, and workplace innovation and transformation, sharing their insights and lessons learned from the trenches. We dig in to share the knowledge and tips that can help modern HR and payroll leaders navigate the challenges and opportunities ahead. So join us.
Well, I'm excited every episode, y'all know that, but really interesting intersection for today's conversation. I'm excited to welcome my friend Sharon. Welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. This is a very exciting time for us to be having these conversations.
Absolutely. And Sharon, I appreciate that you reached out and we had an initial conversation, and the work that you do is fascinating. And I think I know a lot of stuff. And then I got to learn about the work that you do in gerontology, and I got to learn more about really what that kind of study is. And I love that you introduced that to me. But for those who might not be as familiar with the topic or the work that you do, can you tell us a little bit about your story and your journey of how you got into the work that you're doing?
Meghan, it's exciting to talk about it because in the field of gerontology, we say, I met other geros. We're so excited. And we're not mispronounced as, oh, you're a dermatologist. No, it's a gerontologist. Oh, okay, you work with old people. No. Okay, you're a doctor of, no. I'm giving all of these other interpretations. I'm not a geriatrician, which is the doctor of working with older people. So in the field of gerontology, I've selected social gerontology. Gerontology is the field of aging from the time you're born to wherever it is you think you're going at the end of that spectrum. Social gerontology is the behavioral aspect of it. And what interested me in that is that I've been in my career, which is a portfolio career, mostly with a lot of people of many, many ages. And the second piece of it is that I'm a boomer. And I'm proud of it, as all our generations are proud of who they are. And then look at the others as, so who are you and what do you do? But as a boomer, I'm also a sandwich generation person. So my daughter this month is turning 30, and my mother next month is turning 100. And she's considered a super ager, which is anyone from 85 and over chronologically, but biologically, she's 20 years her junior. She's wickedly smart and on task and spot on. And so this is a study of what I'm seeing as a larger potential so that our youngins know that they can grow really, really old and not ancient old, which is embedded, frail. No, this is the real deal. These are vibrant people throughout the generations. And the other piece of it is, which is the third piece, I feel the responsibility to take care of the older generation, interact with the older generation, interact with the younger generation. And that mentoring bit is called mentoring and reverse mentoring.
Absolutely. So I love that we're bringing your work into this, because so much of generational research, at least in the last 20 to 30 years, has been so focused on like the newest generation. It's like, we got to figure them out. We got to crack the code, but we don't stop caring about those groups of people as a society, right? Like they age and they go through different milestones and different phases of life. And I personally am also fascinated by the baby boomer generation. I mean, I'm fascinated by all the generations, comes with the job. But with the baby boomers and how they're really bucking a lot of the trends of what we know about aging populations. And you could probably tell us so much about that, but I'm so glad to bring your perspective into this. I also want to be a super ager. So if you could have your mom write a handbook on how I could do that, that would be ideal, because I would love a long, healthy life and to be 20 years my junior mentally when I'm 100. I think this concept of gerontology, thank you for kind of clarifying that misconception that some people think it's just like the healthcare of older people or people as they age. But in reality, it's this idea of the study of how we age and how we can do so. In our previous conversation, we talked about like in a healthy manner, in a collaborative manner, in a positively social manner. From your perspective, why do you think it's so important that we're actually talking about gerontology and generations, not just those who are aging or advancing in age?
I think you and I, Megan, have found out that working together and having a seamless approach to it, bringing around the table as it was back in the day, in the pioneer times when everyone went to the same church or the same central activity areas, all generations together. And we haven't really steered away from that, except that now we live in our own homes, we have our own cell phones, we have our own independent ways of communicating rather than coming together to do that. And that's why I feel that intergenerational is key to us being socially together. In terms of one of the things you were asking, I typically say there are 3 P's to any generation, and being a positive, well, that's one of them. So it's positive, productive, and purposeful. Those are the 3 things that work no matter where you are in your timeline. And what really works, as I was saying, is mentoring and reverse mentoring, is that as we work together in the same room, same table, without the silos, we discover that there's a lot we have in common. And that whether you are a tech geek, or you're a swim coach, or whatever you are, you're still working with people of all ages. Some might be better swimmers, some might be a better tech, but basically all of us need to know as much of each of it as possible, then say, not my job, I'm going to call so-and-so. And that's how it goes. Does that answer your question?
Absolutely. And I really appreciate that you framed it in like that 3P model of positive, productive, and purpose, because that aligns with some of what we've found in our research about generations in the workplace. Is that like it's pretty universal that regardless of if you're 25 in the year 2025 or if you're 25 50 years ago, you still want to feel productive, you want to have a positive experience, and you want to feel like you have a sense of purpose in the work you do and the interactions that you have. And I think what's really cool about generations is that they might define those 3Ps slightly differently. And that's an interesting point where sometimes I think that generational interaction feels interesting, of like what one generation sees as positive or productive is different than another generation. And how do we kind of come together really to understand one another? Because we need different generations, different perspectives on things. So I think there's so much that we can talk about. Again, I'm fascinated by how people grow up, right? Like that's kind of a part of generations in general. But I would love to focus a little bit about what we can do for Gen Z, our younger generation. And so what are some of the things that are occurring with Gen Z that might be helpful for other older generations to understand Gen Z as they're growing up from your lens of social gerontology?
Well, one of the things that you and I talk about quite a bit is where are the Gen Z right now? And where are they on their own? Where are they connected? And where are they going? So one of the first things you and I talked about, well, where are they going 4 to 5 years from now? Because the projection is if you're in school now and you're a Gen Z-er, then what are you going to do when you get out of school, and who's going to help you, and who's going to be your mentor, and how are you going to gain the knowledge that you need to that you need to grow. And one of the most important things is to be open. And I think that when I was growing up, as they say back in the day, people were very I'd say closed off to bring in younger generations because they feared for their jobs. And you had to be old enough to be in the boardroom, and you had to be smart enough. There were a lot of enoughs that we had. Whereas today, I feel that the generations are working together, and that the generations are feeling that there are opportunities. And that I understand as a woman that I'm going to be bringing the other women up to have a perspective. And this is not slanted at all. This is how to be a female in the boardroom, what to wear, how to put your hair, what kind of words to use, how to be a good listener. And these are the things that we can quietly share behind the scenes and help mentor and help adjust going forward. And then in terms of the Gen Z population, which is really important to us, is how are they managing to stay vibrant, to stay in the picture rather than being excluded because they look younger. I always looked younger. So it was, oh, you can't possibly be that age and you can't be a manager. Well, I am, and I'm going to solve your problem. So that was the issue. But what I'm saying is, Gen Z, I think, is one of the most alert populations we've had, or generations, that is, that we've had in quite some time. The boomers populated and dominated because we had the largest numbers. But that's not really everything. And I think we shouldn't separate the generations to say, well, you're only Gen Z or you're only Alpha, and what do you know? Instead, it's what you bring to the table is your ability to transition, to adjust. For example, today, it's something you were explaining in one of our many conversations. Today, the Gen Z population is saying, generally, wow, going to out-of-state school is going to cost a near fortune. So should I instead stay home with my family and go to a state school? Great idea. I can save money, have side gigs, start putting some money in the bank, and I can do all that. And I could still be a responsible student, but I don't have to spend a fortune and then be way behind in loans. That was not something that I had because it didn't cost a lot of money to go to school. And that's not something that my daughter got stuck with it as a millennial because school tuitions just went very high. And I think that today's Gen Z is wise. I think they are have older souls. I think that they're learning and they're not dumped on, and they're not, which is a terrible expression. Let me change that. They're not set aside. Instead, I think we should be listening. I think they have a lot to offer, and not just in tech. I think they have a lot to offer in every possible type of perspective.
Absolutely. And I think I love that you pointed out like that there's the importance of all the generations coming to this kind of like proverbial table. It's a different perspective, right? It's just a different way that each generation is looking at the world or the situation because of the different worlds that they grew up in. And I think that is so great that we're able to like that you're seeing it from your lens, I'm seeing it from my lens, that maybe we are moving a little bit more towards generational harmony, generational collaboration, whatever you want to call it. Maybe it's not like across the board. But I do feel like that is a good opportunity for older generations to say like, oh, okay, yeah, I sort of understand it. I at least I'm trying, I'm listening. I do also appreciate that you pointed out like the really, what I call the 19-year-old brain of like the 19-year-old brain is the 19-year-old brain, but it's such an important time period in someone's life of growing up and what they're supposed to be developing and how that is a 19-year-old's brain is going to kind of reconcile with the same kind of development that needs to occur regardless of if they're Gen Z, millennial, baby boomer, Gen X, you name it. There's just some things in that phase of life that need to occur. And I love that, like that's like the underside of like where gerontology comes into this is like, it's an aging progression. It's a developmental progression of life. And I think that there's such an important thing of saying, like, yes, I think each generation goes through the age of being 19, 20, 21, whatever that is, and establishing their worldview and their kind of path in world. But older generations can help in navigating and mentoring along that process to make it a little bit smoother. I don't think there's anything wrong with helping make the path slightly smoother for younger generations if it's going to help advance our society to some degree. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Well, I had 10 different stories running in my head.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. I want to bring something up that I think would be helpful to all the generations listening. It's something that happened in Zimbabwe. It's called the Friendship Bench. Have you heard of it?
I think I've heard of versions of it. Like they have them in like some schools in the US, which I love, but a similar type of concept. Yeah.
In the schools, they're called buddy benches.
Mm.
That was after the Friendship Bench. It started in Zimbabwe because there were isolations of family members from each other. And there was this feeling of not getting out and about, not being social. So they set up a bench, and a grandmother sat at the bench and waited for someone to come up and talk to them. And it was happening one after one. All different ages would come up and talk to grandma and talk to the elder, or however you want to phrase it. And it's now an international phenomenon. And there's a Nona bench in New York. I mean, there's all kinds of names for it. The buddy bench that you were sharing is something that started in the schools, in the play yard when everybody goes out running, streaming, screaming, whatever it is, getting their energy out. And then there were those who were not being included. And so there's always a student sitting at the bench, just like there were different grandmothers. And there's always a student sitting at the bench waiting for someone to sit and chat with them. And so they were included rather than excluded. They found a new person who they didn't know, or maybe they knew and said, I'd just rather sit on the bench than go running around. And those people, it doesn't really matter. I have my person. So that was one piece of what I want to share that comes from intergenerational relationships, which goes along with Life Planning Network, which is one of the organizations where I'm on the board. And we have an intergenerational cafe that's been going on for 7 years. It's at Temple University. And those who are brought in are the students and the faculty there, along with Osher Lifelong Learning Institute, which is Ollie, and with our Life Planning Network members. And we have a situation where we pair an older person with a student, and then they go off and they chat about either things that we have given them as a starting point or other topics, and they come together and they chat, and then they come back to the main room and they explain what those relationships are all about. It could be in person, it could be online, and we have a lot of data that we've gathered. And now I'm talking with two other university professors about engaging there. And also in Philadelphia, we're putting together the Grandmother Collective, which is international, and the Life Planning Network intergenerational cafes. So what I'm saying here is we're creating in the gerontology world, in the intergenerational world, ways that we can promote the ease of getting together with programs and benches and so on. Is that answering your question?
Absolutely. I would sign up to go to the Nona bench tomorrow if it was available in my town. And I think it's one of those things of like, my grandmas are no longer around and I miss them like every day. But man, I would love to rent a grandma is what it feels like. I can just go hang out with a lovely person. That's just, I miss the wisdom of what an older person immediately in my life could give me. I'm getting a little emotional even thinking about it. But I think that it's so important because there's so much benefit, not just from younger people learning from older people's experiences, but the energy that it brings to just have that social connection with someone. I do think that the through line of what I heard of the great work that you're doing is the importance of connection and understanding human relationships and what we can learn from others and what we can give to others, because that intergenerational piece is so, I think, so critical if we're doing it through a space of listening to understand and to learn from one another. And we have just so much to offer each other.
It's community. It's community best. and it's open. There's no shame. That's not the word. There's no stopping something like that from occurring.
Mm-hmm.
It's very natural.
Mm-hmm.
And then it becomes more and more and more. So I think on college campuses, certainly with Gen Z, who's been the youngest of the younger generations coming through, I think the most critical piece is making sure we reach into the new 13-year-old and the new 17-year-old and that Renaissance period we all went through. And I kind of wish I had another Renaissance period where all I cared about was school and just and hanging out and contemplating poems. I think we need to embrace that and enjoy that richness. And then again, reach in and help them transition into the workplace and have places to be that are safe. That's a bench, that's a person. In senior living communities, they make sure they assign to new residents, they assign other residents to make sure that there's this relationship. And I think that's what we need to make sure we're doing with each new generation so that we are together on it rather than separating and separating and separating.
Absolutely. And so interesting you brought up the workplace because I feel like, right, like we're talking so much about just like community as a way up here pie in the sky thing. A lot of times when I'm working with companies and I'm like, well, what can we do to better engage our newer generation coworkers and colleagues? I'm like, just give them a friend, like a build in a buddy, like a new buddy. It's not hard. It's just like pick your friendliest person and make sure it's like the person they can just ask a random question to about like, how do I file my timesheet, right? Like little things that come up that don't need to necessarily get escalated to HR to have a conversation about a process. And I'm not like going to be like, I was the best manager ever. But when I was working with the team, my team feedback on the onboarding process was like, it would be nice to just have like a buddy that's not my boss, that's not my direct coworker. And I designated truly what I call like one of the most friendly, outgoing people I've ever met as like everyone's new team member buddy. And it worked out great. And like, that's all it is people just need a friend. They need that connection. And it's not rocket science. Just like help them find a friend because humans are hardwired for that. Sorry, that's my tangent. But sometimes it's just as simple as make sure that there's a friendly face around.
A safe space, a safe place, and where you can ask dumb questions that are not so dumb. I remember saying to myself, I don't even know questions to ask because they're so way ahead of me that I can't even raise my hand because I need more information.
Mm-hmm.
Someone to say, here's some resources for you. Go read this before you come in tomorrow so you can get background. Or here's information on different people in our office and or in other branches who could be of help to you. And here's where you belong. You belong.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I really like that element of like you belong in how simple that is. But sometimes we like build that up to be like so much bigger than it really needs to be. And this idea of helping people as leaders that can actually create environments, how simple that truly can be of just like someone looking out for you and the power of a friendly face for you, whether it's just to ask the question, I think helps in navigating the workplace where it can feel very intimidating if you're the new person or the youngest person or the person that knows the least from whatever perspective that might be. That I think the work that you're doing with some of this life planning network is going to be really advantageous for young people going into their first jobs to say older people are not scary. They just have done a few extra laps around the sun. So let me learn how to like ask the question that I might need to ask. And I think that that's a really important life skill that is embedded in some of that like intergenerational cafe work that's being done.
When you said strategic, I think to add on to what you're saying, since we're all the way over here in the conversation, but the workplace could be very intimidating. And I think the strategy is to figure out in the beginning your passion for your work and stick with that. That's your lane and many lanes that come from it. Number 2 is how to navigate to find others who are like you or different and you want to be different. I remember saying, well, I'll take a step back on that one. When everyone who is younger and coming into the workplace, how do I go into leadership roles? How do I find my way? What do I need to do to get to where I need to go? And I would say, go on LinkedIn for your job kind of description and find what they have done to get to where they are or where they're going. Find leaders who you say, I like them. And you know what? click, can we connect? And they will most likely say yes. And, it's not that hard. That's another way to do it quietly and to feel that I did that. I just connected someone in India with someone in India and Singapore to do with aging. And each of them are doing a tremendous amount of research and then pouring it out into journals. And journals, by the way, are not hard to read. Just know that it has an introduction and a conclusion. And so never be intimidated by journals. They're studying us, and you could do the same thing. But now I'm preaching, so.
Oh, you're preaching to me, who loves a journal. So I'm not intimidated by it. Sharon, I feel like we could talk on and on and on about all this stuff. In fact, we have before. But I think what is so important about the work that you do is the message that, one, it's okay to age and it's natural. And it's not something to be scared of. I think younger generations, like so many Gen Zers, like, I'm about to turn 30. It's all downhill. And I'm like, no, it's like just a different phase of cool. It's a different thing, right? And so much of the work that you do is about helping people age in a healthy manner, in a collaborative manner, in a positive manner. From your work, what are some things that people can do, regardless of cohort or regardless of generation, to infuse a positive and productive mindset into their aging experience?
That's an easy one, because whatever you think was embedded, oh, she's old, she's frail, think about that again. And what are your open-ended questions rather than your negative questions, which is, oh, can I help you? Oh, here was one in Australia. There were students who came in, master's students, to work with a senior living community. And this person from a different country saw that one of her clients dropped a book, and she picked it up for the client and gave it to her. And the woman was so angry. Why did you do that? Well, I respect that I could help you. She said, I need to do that myself. I don't need you to help me. But didn't know it. Didn't communicate anything until the action was done, and the learning, it's a teachable moment, was beautiful on both sides. And it's such a simple example. So I think that we should take off our rose-colored glasses and all the other lenses and just look at the person clean and clean in the image of who they are and where they are. And yes, offer a seat on the bus to someone who's older because, okay, but also pregnant or has a crutch or is young. So really open your lens to see who is around you. And instead of what you've been told is who that younger or older person is or the same age, again, it's a matter of belonging. And it's a matter of being community conscious. And it's a matter of saying, let me think about that again. Let me hear that person again. Give them the opportunity. And also ask good questions. Don't be afraid to ask good questions. So that was the illustration I gave, but I'm sure we can dig up a lot more. Did that one help you enough?
Absolutely. I think that what I'm hearing from that and what we know in research is that when we have good, positive relationships in our life, we're more likely to be happy. We're more likely to be healthy. And so what I hear from you is that if we're approaching our social interactions with a sense of like respectful curiosity and an opportunity to support one another, it helps us build those necessary relationships with others that we can learn from and grow from and have those positive community experiences. Did I hear it correctly?
Oh, absolutely. I feel we mirror each other, fill in each other's sentences. It's a beautiful thing.
I know. I like it. See, intergenerational harmony right here. Well, Sharon, I don't let anybody escape this podcast without answering my favorite question. And what is it that is your favorite thing about Generation Z? We're going to give them a little extra love today, but what's your favorite thing about Gen Z?
I think it's they're innovative and they're curious and they're finding new ways to express themselves and not to be, I would say, not to be intimidated by the other generations. I think they have this big shield up and then says, okay, you're doing what you're doing, but I want to have a little time to do what I'm doing because I'm enjoying the ride. So and then it's okay, I can let others in because I know that I need to work with everyone else. But I feel as though they're innovative, curious, creative, and they're going to go the distance.
I would agree with you. I think that they will challenge society in a very positive way to think about things differently. And they've been very empowered to feel like they can do that at the age that they are. And I love that they're not saying like, well, I'm just going to wait my turn until we're elected officials and we can do it our way. So I think that they're going to challenge us to think differently. And I think that that's a good and okay thing. Well, Sharon, thank you so much for being here and sharing your wealth of knowledge. Again, you opened my eyes to thinking about things differently. And I am so appreciative of that. If people want to follow along with your work, what's the best way for them to do so?
I think LinkedIn is pretty much where I have a very big village. So follow me on LinkedIn, and you can reach out to me through you if you'd like to reach me through my email address. And I welcome maybe bringing them onto the stage with us and having a conversation that would be many generations, because I think you're onto something with the lenses rather than the lens. And I appreciate hearing from you, because Gen Z to me is only those who I know. Right? Both you and I are academics, and so we read and then do some studies. But I'd rather hear it individually and from you and from different parts of the population, because I think that we need to offer whatever we can. But also, I want to hear, because I want to learn.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. That's been like the through line of the whole episode is you got to listen and learn from other people. So, Sharon, I appreciate you being here to share with others so that they can learn from our experiences. But really, thank you again. And we'll make sure to add your LinkedIn to the show notes for anyone that wants to connect with you and join Sharon's Village. I do love that. And join the proverbial professional buddy bench of LinkedIn and hang out with us there. So thank you again.
That in there. Thank you, Megan. This was a great opportunity. Thank you.
What does it really take to lead with impact in today's ever-evolving world? Welcome to Inside the C-Suite, the podcast where influence, energy, innovation, and empathy converge. Hi, I'm Christy Honeycutt, your host. Join me as I sit down with the boldest voices in leadership, visionaries who are not just making decisions, but making a difference. In every episode, we explore the heart of leadership. How do high-performing leaders harness their energy? How do they lead with empathy without losing their edge? How do they turn disruption into innovation and pressure into purpose? You'll hear unfiltered stories of adversity, resilience, and the raw moments that shaped true influence. This isn't about perfection. It's about presence, passion, and the energetic exchange that fuels transformation. Inside the C-Suite is your invitation to lead from a deeper place with intention, connection, and courage. If you're ready to go beyond the surface and unlock what really moves leaders to action, hit subscribe and step inside. You can find us wherever you get your podcast fix. Inside the C-Suite, well, we're an energetic exchange. Let's lead with influence, live with energy, and create with empathy.
I always walk away from these conversations feeling inspired because we cover so much. So here are a few key takeaways from my conversation with Sharon about the science of aging. First, intergenerational connection matters. Sharon reminded us that learning and mentorship is a two-way street, and we all benefit when generations come together, whether it's through professional mentorship, personal relationships, or even something as simple as a conversation with someone older or younger than us. Second, Gen Z is actively shaping the future of aging. I loved how she highlighted that this generation isn't waiting their turn to make an impact. They're questioning the status quo, making intentional choices, and thinking critically about their long-term well-being, whether it's financial decisions, career paths, or how they want to structure their lives. And finally, she gave us the 3 Ps of aging well: being positive, productive, and purposeful. Aging isn't something to fear, it's something to embrace. Whether you're 19 or 90, you can thrive when you find purpose, stay engaged, and surround yourself with meaningful relationships. Sharon's insights were such a great reminder that no matter where we are in our journey, we all have something valuable to contribute and something to learn. If you want to keep up with her work, make sure to check her out on LinkedIn, and we'll be sure to drop that link in the show notes for you. As always, thank you for tuning in. If this conversation resonated with you, be sure to share it with a friend so we can keep the conversation going. Rating and reviewing wherever you listen to the podcast is helpful, and it ensures other people can help find #Gen Z and listen along with us. We're still just getting into the fun of season 7, and there's a lot more great conversations on the way. Subscribing is the best way that you can make sure that you don't miss any episodes when they become available. If you have a guest or a topic you'd like me to explore a little bit more, I'm always open to hearing about new ideas. There's a form on my website where you can share your thoughts. You can find the form at meghanmgrace.com/podcast. You can also stay connected with me on Instagram and LinkedIn, where you can find me under the handle at Meghan M. Grace. This episode was edited by Leah Kramer, the Gen Zer behind the scenes that brings this podcast to life. Thank you again for stopping by. Let's continue this conversation, and we'll chat soon.